Hello, I'm Will and this is Mike with the Tabletop Donkeys.
Hello.
And in this video we'll be looking at issue 55 of Warhammer 40,000 Combat Patrol magazine, which comes with the first set of parts to make 3 Hernkyn Pioneers for our Leagues of Votann Combat Patrol. We'll be looking at their build guide in this issue, and then in our game we'll be continuing with our Combat Patrol campaign. Having looked through the issue, we start with the build guide for the Hernkyn Pioneers. It starts by mentioning you have a lot of head options, just like with the Hearthkin Warriors. And there are 3 of the bikes which all go together in basically the same way. In fact, the parts up until step 4 are all identical, so you just do all that 3 times. But then they have different riders and equipment mounted on them. So the first one actually has 2 riders on it, one sitting in the seat and one on the back. We'd recommend keeping at least the rear rider apart as a separate sub-assembly, otherwise you're going to struggle to paint some of the details on that individual. The driver you can probably get away with gluing onto the seat, and it does suggest doing that before you put the handlebars on, because it will make your life easier. The kit also comes with lots of accessories like bags and things, which you can put wherever you like. And then the other 2 bikes both have an option of what you put on the roll bar on the top, either a communication device or a searchlight. It doesn't tell you to do so here, but I think according to their datasheet you should have one of each. And finally a page about fitting them into their bases. It does suggest not gluing them on this stage, because otherwise you won't be able to paint the underside of the bike. And the leader bike with the 2 riders has a different rock, and you can't use it for the other 2, whereas the other 2 are interchangeable. Then we have some more background on the society of the Leagues of Votann. They're very traditionalist as a species, but also totally pragmatic. They even have artificial intelligences called Ironkin, who are accorded the same status within kin society as their living counterparts. They have a strong sense of community amongst themselves and form multiple different layered groupings within their society. Firstly, the kindred. So although they're all clone species, these are the closest thing they would have to a family, a group of kin who live together and fight together and essentially look out for each other. There's also the guilds, which is groups of kin with similar occupations. So for example, mining guilds or crafting guilds. Guild members have to give a portion of their profits to the guild but get certain benefits in return. And finally the leagues themselves, each one of which is formed around one of the Votann or the ancestor cores, and these are just large federations of kindreds with the mutual goal of protecting the ancestor core and holding a similar outlook, philosophy and methods of war. And we have a bit more background on the orcs, this time the orc clans. So while to an outsider all orcs might appear to be essentially the same, their society is actually a bit more nuanced than that, where orcs with similar tendencies will tend to band together. We've seen one of these before, being the Goth clan, which tends to be the biggest and strongest orcs, who view all other orcs as being unnecessarily showy or just generally un-orky. But the other clans are the Death Skulls, whom other orcs consider to be essentially shameless looters who will nick anything that's not tied down, or even some things that are. And they consider scavenging after a battle to be almost as important as fighting the battle itself. And they tend to wear blue, as orcs consider blue to be a lucky colour, and that suits the Death Skulls, seeing as the luckiest orc is obviously going to get the best plunder. Then the Evil Sons, who are orcs who are obsessed with going fast. Many of these end up being what the orcs call speed freaks, who are obsessed with fast vehicles, engines, and generally making a lot of noise and going fast. And Evil Sons usually wear red because red ones go faster, obviously. The Bad Moons are those orcs whose teeth grow the fastest, and since orc teeth are their currency, these are often the richest, and therefore can afford the best equipment. It often means they end up with the most powerful weaponry, though most orcs think of them as being far too flashy for their own good. And the Bad Moons usually wear yellow, being an ostentatious kind of colour. The Snakebites, most other orcs consider to be rather backwards, and they tend to rear the largest species of squig, some of which they will ride into battle, and they consider more complicated technology to be far too unreliable and complicated compared to a good old no-nonsense spear or chopper. Then we have the Blood Axes, which most other orcs consider them to be deeply suspicious, especially because Blood Axes might concoct a battle plan. They will even sometimes watch their enemy and try and learn their tactics rather than just clobber them at first sight. They even sometimes attempt to mimic camouflage schemes of foes they face, though whether they actually understand the point of the camouflage is another question. And then there's also what's known as freebooters, which are not really a clan as such, but more those orcs who've been exiled from their tribe for either being strange or just downright nasty. They are generally those orcs with the biggest egos who think that they ought to be able to do whatever they want, and as such they tend to hire themselves out as mercenaries, plying the void in great scrap battleships and having the flashiest guns they can afford. Finally, we have the collection article for the Hernkyn Pioneers. These serve as prospectors and outriders for the League's forces, looking for new resources to exploit and on the lookout for enemies that might try and stop them from doing so. And they employ fast vehicles like these hoverbikes that help them in their job. As usual, you can give them a background, a name, and record their deeds. And finally, we have their datasheet, which we'll need to look at in the next video. But for now, I'll hand you over to Mike, who will take us into our game.
So this issue came with 3 more campaign games. We're going to be playing the 3rd one in this issue, but I'll briefly skim over the first 2. The first one is the Chaos Space Marines versus the Loyalist Space Marines on Scorched Earth. And again, you can see the victory outcomes for that scenario, and then the campaign victory, if that's the last one that faction won. And then we have Chaos versus Tyranids on Sweeping Raid. Although the Tyranids won the last campaign game we played, we're not going to be playing this one. It is technically not the next Tyranid game. That game should be against the Aeldari. It was in the previous issue. So we might wait until a different time to play that one. You can see the victory outcomes for this scenario as well. And then we get into today's games, where we're going to be doing Aeldari versus Chaos Space Marines on Display of Might. This way we can introduce 2 more factions into the campaign, and we can kind of get another faction on each victory track, so it will be at a different starting point than the Tyranids were. And the little background is that the Aeldari are moving into an area to retrieve the Spirit Stones of a lost Ranger party, while the Chaos are moving to the area to try and secure a good foothold for further raids into whatever system the factions are fighting over. So you can see the victory outcomes for each one. So I'll get the board set up and the army set up for Display of Might. And I don't think we've seen both of these factions on Display of Might before. We've seen Chaos, we definitely haven't seen the Aeldari. So here we are set up for Display of Might. There's objectives number 1 and 4 you can see along the centre line, 1 at the top, 4 at the bottom. Objectives 2 and 3 are in both sides deployment zones. I think the Hellbrute is standing on 1 and the Guardians are covering up number 2. And I've got my Chaos Space Marines on the right. You might be able to make out that I've gone for the Terminators rather than the Havocs, because I want to be able to move up to take objective 1. Having a look at the Chaos deployment first, down here I've got the Dark Apostle with 5 Chaos Marines, all the melee ones plus the Melter, hopefully taking cover behind some of this line of sight blocking terrain to go towards objective 4. And for the rest of my army I have the Hellbrute, the other 5 Chaos Marines around objective 3, and the Terminators at the top. My secondary objective is going to be Champion of the Dark Gods, where I get 3 VP per phase in which the Dark Apostle killed something. So he might kill a Guardian with his bolt pistol if I'm lucky. And my enhancement is going to be Infernal Blessing, which is the alternate one, where the Dark Apostle has a 5+ Feel No Pain. Having a look at the Aeldari deployment, we can see most of the units.
Yeah, so I've also gone for the alternate unit, the Wraith Guard, instead of the Wraith Lord. I've split the Wind Riders into 2 units, 1 unit on each flank, the Guardians in the middle joined by the Farseer, and then the Wraith Guard behind some terrain. I've gone for the default enhancement, which is Foresight for the Farseer, so that allows his unit once per turn to use Fire Overwatch for 0 CP, and they hit on 5s while doing so, or on 4s if they're in range of an objective marker that I control. But I've gone for the optional secondary objective of Greater Destiny, which is 10 victory points at the end of the game if I have a unit in my opponent's deployment zone that isn't battle shocked.
So a quick rundown of Display of Might. There are 2 mission rules. The first is that we can't use the Insane Bravery stratagem unless the unit it's being used on is within 6 of our Warlord. And then Objective 1 and Objective 4 are going to be Sacred Sites, and characters can claim Sacred Sites at the end of the command phase as long as they're within 6 of the objective marker. And we get 5 victory points for holding 1 objective, 5 for holding 2, 5 if one of the objectives we control is one of the symbolic sites, that's 1 and 4, and 5 again if a model has been claiming a symbolic site for 2 turns or more. Now we're rolling off to see who goes first. I won the roll off, so I'm going first. We're into Chaos turn 1.
So I rolled my fake dice, you can see them on the screen. I got a decent roll first time, so I decided to keep them.
My movement, the Apostles unit has come down behind this line of sight blocking train to contest objective 4 later. Otherwise the Terminators have moved up normally so they can shoot at the Guardians. The Hellbrute has moved across to get the line of sight on the Wraith Guard, and the Space Marine squad has rearranged themselves a little bit so the Heavy Bolter can get in line of sight of the unit of Wind Riders on the bottom side of the board. Start the shooting with the Chaos Marine squad with the bolt gun, so it's just going to be the Heavy Bolter shooting at the Wind Riders at the bottom left. 3 shots from the Heavy Bolter, hitting on 4s because he moved. He gets 2 hits plus a sustained. Strength 5, so wounding on 3s. That's 2 wounds, I'll take that, minus 1 AP.
Right, I'll use some fake dice straight away. I'll use a 4 to make sure we pass 1 save and then roll the other one, which I passed.
Then the Terminator squad's going to put some shots into the Guardians.
And I'll use my command point for whip fast reactions to give them minus 1 to hit.
Yeah, and I think then I'll use my command point for malicious volleys to give myself reroll hit rolls of 1. And you know what, we'll do a dial pact for sustained hits as well. So we've got 8 shots from Stormbolters, hitting on 4s thanks to whip fast reactions, but re-rolling 1s thanks to malicious volleys. And 6s are sustained, so we've got 1 6. And the re-roll into hits, that's 5 hits, plus sustained is 6 hits. Wounding on 3s, 4 wounds at no AP.
Again, I'll use a fake die as a 3 to pass one of them with cover, and then make 3 more, also on 3s. Failed 2 though, so lose 2 Guardians.
Terminators have to make a leadership test, and their leadership 6, so they passed. Finally, for shooting, we'll do the Hellbrute. He's going to shoot at the Wraithguard because it's flat 3 damage, so if I do get any wounds through, I can kill them instantly. D3 shots with Blast, so D3 plus 1 for 3 shots. Hitting on 3s, getting 2 hits. Shunt 8, so wounding on 3s. 1 wound at -3.
I'll take it on one who's in cover behind the barricade, so it'll be a 4. No, it is destroyed. I can't save that with fate dice or command points because the Wraithguard can't use either.
Yeah, that's 1 dead Wraithguard. Then I have to make a hazardous roll for the Dreadnought's Plasma Cannon. It's not. And that's it for my turn. Perhaps would have hoped for more casualties on the Wraithguard, but we'll have to make do as we head into Aeldari turn 1.
Well, I got another fate die for the Guardians being on an objective, and that was a 3. And then the whole army has shifted forwards, but towards objective 1. The Wraithguard going out front. Fortune went off and has gone on them. Guardians are heading across behind them. The Wind Riders at the top of the board have just come along so they can see the Terminators, and the ones that were down in the bottom left corner have zoomed across to the middle so the scatter laser has line of sight. And then we'll do shooting at the Terminators. We'll start with the Guardians.
Now I'm going to spend a command point for Empiric Rights to give the Terminators a 4+ invulnerable save.
With Farseer's Eldritch Storm because it does D3 damage, so D6 plus 1 shots because it's Blast. 6. Hitting on 3s. 5 hits, wounding on 3s. 3 wounds.
4+ invulnerables. Made 1.
D3 damage each. First one does 3, kills the Terminator. Second one does 1. Then I'll do the Star Cannon, 2 shots on 3s. 1 hit. Wounds on a 3. In fact, you know what, I think I'll use a fate die to make sure it does.
And then we got a 4+. Nope.
So that kills the injured Terminator with 2 damage. And 5 shuriken catapults are in range, so that's 10 shots on 3s. Only 4 hits and 5s to wound 2 at -1.
3+ armour. Failed both. So Terminator takes 2 wounds.
So we'll do the Wind Riders behind the Guardians, only the scatter laser will be in range, and then after that's happened we'll do the other unit of Wind Riders immediately. So the first scatter laser, 6 shots on 3s, rerolling 1s because of the closest eligible target. 5 hits wounding on 4s, 2 with no AP.
2+ saves, made both.
And then the other Wind Rider unit, scatter laser again, same thing. Reroll the 1s, they all hit, 4s to wound, 2 again.
2+ saves, made both.
And then 4 shots from shuriken catapults from that Wind Rider squad. Reroll 1 again, they wound on 5s but rerolling because of twin linked. 3 wounds at -1.
3+ saves. Failed 2, so that's 1 dead and 1 wounded.
And then finally we have the Wraithguard, and the Terminator is the only target in range. So we're hitting on 4s with 4 shots, getting 3, and wounding on 2s because they are strength 14. 3 wounds.
4+ invulnerable. Failed them all.
Okay, well it's D6 plus 1 damage each, so actually that'll just kill them.
Yeah.
And finally, at the end of the shooting phase, I spent my command point for Zephyr Swift, allowing the Guardians to make a 6-inch normal move, which gets them almost completely behind the cover.
Next will be the end of the turn. And we'll be on to Chaos turn 2. So in my movement phase, the Dark Apostle and his unit is moved around the terrain to take objective 4. Up to the top, the Hellbrute is moving out, and just about get within 12 of the Wraithguard, and the Space Marine unit has moved out as well to see the Wind Riders.
But when the Hellbrute moves, the Farseer can use his enhancement for a 0 CP Overwatch with the Guardian unit. There's only 1 catapult and the Star Cannon can see the Hellbrute, but it's free and it's better than nothing. And they'll be hitting on 5, so the Shuriken Catapult misses, and the Star Cannon misses.
I'll start my shooting with the Chaos Marine unit, going to put all their shots into that unit of Wind Riders at the top. So I'll use a Dark Pact for lethal hits, because they'll be really on 4s normally. So 8 shots from bolters on 3s. There's 1 lethal and 4 hits. Really on 4s. 2 more wounds, so 3 in total.
3's to save, saved, plus the lethal hit, saved.
And the heavy bolter, we're hitting on 4s because it moved. Gets 1 hit. That doesn't wound. And then their leadership test, they fail and take D3 mortal wounds for 3. And then the Hellbrute's going to shoot at the Wraithguard. And you know what, it's going to do a Dark Pact. We'll do sustained hits. D3 shots, no bonuses. 1. I'm going to re-roll that into a 3. 3 shots, hitting on 3. 6 are sustained. Oh, we got 1 hit. Wounds on a 4 thanks to Fortune. It does.
And they're out in the open, so it'll only be a 5+ save. Oh, I made it.
And then it's Dark Pact, it's fine. Then in the charge phase, Hellbrute will charge the Wraithguard. It will need an 11. It gets an 8. Well, that's going to be it. On to Aeldari turn 2.
So moving still fairly cautiously because that Dark Apostle squad is dangerous, so I'm just trying to keep away from them. The Farseer and the Guardians have gone around the back of that terrain feature. The Wraith Guard have stayed roughly where they were, but just got a little bit further away. And the 3 Wind Riders that were on that side have zoomed up the side edge of that board there. I also didn't get a Fate die because the Guardians weren't on an objective and Fortune failed to go off, but I did get 5 victory points for holding one objective. And the other Wind Riders have jumped back to the other side so they can see and be in range of the Dark Apostles unit. And we'll start shooting with them at the Dark Apostles unit. 4 catapult shots on 3s, re-rolling everything because they are the closest target and they're on an objective. So they all hit. 4s to wound, twin linked. 4 wounds, -1.
So we'll do the 2 little friends first with 4+ immortals. They're both dead. And then 4+ saves for Marines. 1 takes a wound.
And the scatter laser, they all hit. And wounding on 3s gets 4.
3+ saves, because... so we take another wound. So Marine's dead and the 2 little friends.
Well, the Wraith Guard are already in range of the Hellbrute, so we'll start with them. 4 shots on 4s, 3 hits, and 3s to wound, 2.
6+ save. Fell both.
D6 plus 1 each. That'll be 9 damage.
Goes down. Does it explode? No.
The Farseer's squad of Guardians are going to shoot at the Chaos Space Marines in their own deployment zone, and I'll use a command point for Storm of Shots to give me +1 to hit.
I guess we'll do Empiric Rights again, because it will affect the Farseer and the weapon platform.
5 of the Shogun Catapults in range, and I'll do them first because there's a wounded Marine hitting on 2s. They all hit, wounding on 4s. 5 wounds at -1.
4s. Made 3, so I lose a Marine and 1's wounded.
Well, then we'll do Eldritch Storm, D6 shots, 6. On 2s, 5, 3s. 3 wounds.
3, 4+ vulnerables. Made 1.
So 1 kills the injured Marine and the other one will do D3 damage, enough to kill a second.
So just got the heavy bolter left.
And then we have the Star Cannon. Well, I'll do a 2 to hit automatically, and another hit on a 2. And then we've got all these 2s, so I might as well use a 2 to wound, and another wound.
4+ vulnerable. He's dead.
So that actually only leaves the 1 Wind Rider squad, and they've only got 1 target left, and they are all in range. So the catapults can reroll misses because of the closest target, and can reroll wounds because of twin linked, so we get 3.
4+ saves. Made 2, so 1's wounded.
And the scatter laser can reroll everything. Wounds on 3s, 3.
3+ saves. Fail 1, so we lose a Marine.
And finally, I spent my remaining command point to move the Guardians again, so we get onto objective 1.
Yeah, and I think I'm just going to see at this point because I've got 1 unit left. It's just going to get shot to bits.
Yeah, because they're not in range to charge anything, and bolt pistols aren't going to do much.
So that'll be an Aeldari victory. We'll recap that for you now. Well, that was the game for issue 55 of Warhammer 4000 Comic Jar magazine. That didn't go very well for me. How did you think it went for you?
Well, I don't think it could have gone a great deal better for me. Yeah, I just was able to concentrate firepower and delete the Terminators and then the Hellbrute and then the Chaos Marines. And then I was always planning to stay away from the Dark Apostles unit as much as possible because their firepower isn't much of a threat except possibly the Melter Gun. And I didn't want them to charge in melee, but I have the speed to avoid them. So, yeah, no complaints, really.
Yeah, there's not really anything I can do about it except make 4+ immortal saves.
Yeah, you were quite unlucky that the Terminators hardly made any of their saves, to be fair.
Well, I suppose I could have held back and maybe tried to use the terrain, seeing as you were quite heavily focusing on that side, seeing as I went first. Perhaps it would have been better to all consolidate towards the bottom of the board, because there was a lot of line of sight blocking towards the middle of the board and made my way that way. But again, the Wraith Guard shot and hit.
That's true, they made 8 shots this game and 6 of them hit, when only 4 of them ought to, statistically. I think bringing the Wraith Guard was the right choice. I think they're just better against the Chaos Marines, because had you brought the Havocs are probably more of a threat to the Wraith Lord than they are to the Wraith Guard, just because you can only kill 1 Wraith Guard with a las cannon rather than destroying most of a Wraith Lord with it. But the Havocs themselves would have just been stuck at the back of the board for risk of being shot by all the Guardians and Wind Riders and things. I could have hit quite effectively. Yeah, and the Wraith Guard's guns are better at dealing with Terminators and the Hellbrute than the Wraith Lord is. The Wraith Lord has to get into melee with them, which, particularly if it's being chipped at by melter guns and plasma cannons and things, it might not get there in such good shape.
And you got your Fate dice to help keep you alive.
Yeah, and in this game I actually just tried to use as many of them as possible, because in some games I finished the game with half of them still left, so I thought, well, I might as well just use them to pass saves and things and hit with good, powerful guns, particularly the lower value ones as well. You know, save the 5s and 6s for important stuff, but when I can just make sure the Star Cannon hits, for example, with a 2, might as well. I was also not too fussed about letting you gain a couple of victory points early if it meant that I could stay at arm's length and shoot you more, because especially with my secondary being points at the end of the game and yours being the Dark Apostle killing things in melee, it made sense to stay away from the Dark Apostle and just play the slightly longer longer game, I suppose. And actually, also, I didn't want to get too close to the Terminators or the Hellbrute for the same reason. So it could have not worked if my shooting had been worse, and then I would have had Terminators and the Hellbrute rampaging through my lines. So
yeah, I mean, if I'd killed a few more of the Wraith Guard, I think.
But even if I killed one of those 2 units and not both of them, then you might still have had... Because as soon as you tie down the Guardians or something, then they become quite useless.
Well, but anyway, I don't think there's too much more to say about this game or this issue, and obviously this will go down as an Aeldari campaign victory. They've beaten the Chaos faction. Don't know when we'll see either of these factions again, because in the next issue we'll be seeing our new Hernkyn Pioneers and more of the Votann. So as always, if you'd like this content, leave a like and subscribe, and leave any comments how you've been getting on with the collection, or if you would have done something differently in this game, let us know. We've been the Total Donkeys, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye for now.